Welcome to the Busy Guy Show. My name is Vince LoCascio, and I've got Matt Dubiel here today. He is the owner of WCKG, and he has been called the most influential, one of the most influential people online. That's a pretty big title, buddy.
They said it a long time ago when there were less people on the internet.
Is it still true?
I don't think so. Because think about the internet. I mean, this age that we're living in has gotten so amazing. So many things you can do with your phone and so everybody and their mother, literally everybody and their kid is on the internet. So no, it's not true at all. In fact, all the big shots have passed me by. In fact, what that was a survey, I think in Chicago Magazine or something, Fortune or something like that.
Yeah.
And they had this little thing where they had you share something. And based on the sharing, that's when they said who had influence. And it just so happened that I had a few famous friends and they shared it. So really they were influential and they just helped share my stuff.
Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about how you got to this point that you're at. It says you interned for Steve Dahl.
Yeah.
Big name in Chicago radio.
He's a big guy.
Literally.
Well, not anymore. Jinx. He was the reason, him and the others that were at the mighty loop back in the 80s, the AM loop and the FM loop, which I listened to religiously with my father. We listened to the loop in the car, and even though it was it wasn't designed for me to listen to as a kid, we laughed and we enjoyed it. And those guys, Kevin Matthews, Stephen Gary, Jonathan Brandmeier, and eventually Danny Bonaducci and Wendy and Bill were the people that influenced me and made me want to get into the business. So when they told me I had to get an internship, I went and I got an internship with Steve Dahl. And at that time, nobody else was getting internships with Dahl. Nobody my age.
What was an internship for him? Now, I don't want to use expression, but being a gopher, because I know he had guys on the show that, went and got him pizza and stuff like that and incorporated it into the show. What were you doing?
I had a very high-level internship. My job was to wheel in the cart deck. So back in those days, you had to play these things called carts, and they look like 8-tracks, and that's where all the sound bites and the music beds were. In our day, we didn't have computers. Yeah. So I had to wheel the cart deck in, and I had to get his Diet Cokes ready. Very high-level stuff.
Only because you're talking about how was music played then? There was no turntables. They were doing...
They were already moving into CDs. So in that building, we were in the Hancock at AM 1000. And this was about 1995. So in that building, it was a really magical place. You had AM 1000 with Steve Dahl in the morning. Then you had the Loop with Brandmeier and Bonaducci and Kevin Matthews and Wendy and Bill and Chicago Eddie Schwartz was there. And then you had Rock 103.5, this news station with this shock jock from out of town that was new to Chicago called Mancow. And everybody my age...
Mancow's been around that long?
Yeah.
Me for not knowing. But.
Yeah, everyone my age wanted to intern with Mancow. None of the younger guys went to go intern with Dahl. So it was an easy get. I got in very quickly. And it was a great place to be. There was a lot of action. You had Chet Kopic sitting in the studio doing the sports talk show at night. You had Dahl, you had Brandmeier. I mean, you had just if you were into that scene, it was a wax museum come to life of all the people you heard. And some of them you didn't want to meet in person because they disappointed, and then some of them didn't disappoint because they were everything you thought they were going to be.
So the passion you had for it, you were living your dream.
Yeah, I mean, as much as you can be at the age of 17 or whatever, but at that point, the getting of the Diet Cokes, I didn't see a lot of, you have to pay your dues when you intern. So you have to do that stuff. But usually there's they'll match the crappy work with something that's interesting and radio related. I wasn't getting a lot of that stuff to do because there wasn't a lot of stuff to do on Steve's show. Steve would sit down, he'd do his show, he would leave. That's what the kind of show is that he did. So after a few months, I went, you know what, I went and moved over to the Loop because I wanted to get my hands dirty. I wanted to start cutting up tape. I wanted to do radio stuff. I didn't mind getting Cokes, but I wanted to also make sure that I could get something out of it. So I moved to the Loop and I went with Wendy and Bill.
And this was high school that you were in, or right after high school?
It was after high school. I was supposed to go to Illinois State and be a history teacher and a football coach. And I went down for orientation, and I thought, no, I don't want to do this. I want to do radio. I want to be on the radio.
Okay, I'm kind of killing two birds with one stone today because my goal is to have an Elvis impersonator on the show. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So you did that?
Yeah. So I sort of fell into this Elvis thing back then. I haven't done it since then. But my senior year at Downers Grove North High School, they have this competition, and they call it Mr. Downers Grove North. And it's like, you have swimsuit competition, you have a talent, you have formal wear, and all this other stuff. And I didn't really have a talent. So, but I loved Elvis. Growing up, I listened to all this Elvis stuff, and I loved Elvis and singing Elvis songs. So I got a jumpsuit. I don't think I used a wig. I think I actually grew my hair out for this. I planned it a year in advance, grew the sideburns, and I sang 2 Elvis songs. And I basically dissected each category so that...
What were they? You remember?
Teddy Bear and Are You Lonesome Tonight? And during Are You Lonesome Tonight, there's like an interlude where he starts talking. He says, I wonder if you're lonesome tonight. So I did that, and I talked to one of the judges, and I got down, and she was one of my teachers. So, someone said the world's a stage. and we had fun with it, everybody. And I was making, a jerk out of myself in a fun way. And somehow, some way after that, somebody asked me to do it at like the Berwyn Festival or Taste of Berwyn. There was like all these Elvises for some Elvis convention. And somebody said, you should go. And I went, and I did that. And after that, somebody said, well, I got a business where I do, Elvis grams. I need somebody to do Elvis grams. Would you do Elvis grams? So I did a couple of those.
And you're just a kid.
Yeah. It was when you're 17 and you show up dressed as Elvis to a bunch of 40-something women.
Look at him.
It's a weird, interesting sort of combination. And so I did a little bit of that and then retired.
Okay, I've said it before we started today. I could probably sit and hopefully talk to you for like 3-4 hours. I know you're a busy guy, but so we got 30 minutes. So I want to just jump a little bit ahead to where we're at now. Okay, it says you were one of the first podcasters. I like on my show to explain to people that are watching that maybe don't know. You've heard the term a million times. What is a podcast?
So technically, what a podcast is a piece of audio on the internet that is enclosed in a post, like on a website or something, that you can subscribe to so that it automatically downloads to your device. Back in 2004, when nobody really knew what podcasting was, the 2 guys that invented it, one of them is an MTV VJ. His name is Adam Curry. And if you saw him, you'd remember him. He had blonde hair, and he invented this concept. You know how people have blogs?
Yeah.
So the concept is that you embed audio into the blog. And the reason for it was, back in 2004 and before then, internet was so slow, if you had an internet file, it was big. So if you tried to press play, it would take forever to download. You couldn't hear it. So with this simple syndication, they call it, the podcast would automatically download into your phone or into your iPad all the time as soon as it was ready. And then when you were ready to listen to it, you could take it with you. Now, today, when people say podcasting, they, like many terms, Kleenex and Xerox machine, it's become ubiquitous with video or audio that's someplace on the internet. But technically, a true podcast, you subscribe to it. And the point of that is that it's waiting for you when you're no longer connected to the internet.
Okay. And I was going to ask you that. It is video as well now, too.
Yeah. People are doing, like I said, we're living in these interesting times. We all have radio and TV studios in our pocket. The camera in these things are better than the cameras that air the, Tonight Show with Ed Sullivan.
Yeah. Or they'll talk about it's more sophisticated than the computer that helped them land on the moon.
Right.
That's the kind of thing I have a lot of questions for you about, is where we're headed. Because now... It started off, if I could say this correctly, it started off radio, okay, it was just sound. Then there was TV, picture, and sound. And now it's almost like we're doing a full circle, if you want to call it that, because now radio shows are live streaming. So eventually, is it going to be just, I was thinking around the way here, where, you remember they came out with radios that had a TV channel on it, so you could listen like Channel 2 or whatever.
Right.
That's where we're headed now. We're kind of like going back to that, so you could listen to a TV show in the car or watch a TV show here. So explain a little bit about, please, where we're headed with that, where the live streaming of radio shows is going.
Yeah, when you look at all of what has happened, and a great example of this is when you go to Epcot Center and you're inside that ball and you go on that ride and they take you through the invent of communication, and they really do it well, as Disney does. And it starts with when paper was invented by the Egyptians, papyrus. Communication. It was before that. It was cave drawings. And they couldn't take the communication with them because it was on the cave. Then they invented the paper, and now they could finally take the knowledge with them. And then they started writing books, and then the printing press came along, and they could duplicate the books. Before that, the monks, God bless them, had to sit there and duplicate the books by hand. Then the printing press came, and then the printing press turned into radio, and then radio became television. Now we have the internet. What a lot of people don't understand and realize, because we take the tools we have to share pictures of cats, pawing at stuff and ridiculous nonsense, is the opportunity that's in her hand. And what's happening right now, I believe, is that the new media is just eating the old media. Like Amazon is eating Walmart, and Amazon is eating bookstores. These new ideas are not really new ideas. They're just technology-driven people and companies that know how to do it better, faster, stronger, and they're gobbling them up. So eventually, any show you want, you're going to get on video. You're going to get on audio. You're going to get the transcription. You could read it. And however you want to get the wisdom of the great busy guy, you're going to be able to get in, to read, or as audio so you could listen to it, or videos so you could see it. And the people that are doing that the fastest and the most right now are going to be the ones that are like the Jackie Gleasons of television. Most of the stars of television were radio stars. And most of the then...
that's why some didn't transfer over, right? Because they didn't look, if you want to call it, look good.
Some of them, and some of them did because they didn't look good. If you're...
William Conrad. Not that he didn't look bad, but he had that great deep voice.
Right. They have something about them that grabs you. And for some, it's comedy. So for like a Jackie Gleason, being a heavy guy was okay. But the bottom line with this media is there's going to come a point where you're just going to look at your mirror in your bathroom, or right now you have people pulling up their phones and then they put them in the goggles.
Yeah.
And that's because it's primitive. It's like a cave drawing. Eventually, you're just going to go, I want to see the Busy Guy show, and it's going to be in your eyeball. Somehow, some way, whether it's contact lenses, whether it's a chip, who knows. But eventually, all that content is just going to get to you however you want it, and you're just going to be able to ask for it.
It's interesting that you mentioned it, because I'm a big fan or believer in it, that things do get gobbled up. Just like, it was a perfect example, how Walmart, not that they gobbled up, but they got rid of all the small stores.
Yeah. Yes. It's the classic symptom. They absolutely, I think they did gobble them up. The hardware stores did the same thing. Now, there may be room one day for some of these mom and pops. Doesn't mean you can't have an independent hardware store or movie theater. Heck, one of my favorite movie theaters in the area is the Tivoli in downtown Downers Grove. I saw E.T. there for the first time. I saw Pulp Fiction there for the first time. On Friday nights growing up in Downers Grove, you'd walk there because you could get the movie for $1.50. And this wasn't like in the 40s. Yeah. This was in the 80s and the 90s. A movie was $1.50.
They would put that on their ad.
Yeah, it was. But they have only one screen, but it's a beautiful theater, and they got the organist, and now they're doing things to stay relevant, and they have like a bar, so you can now get drinks so new ways for them to make money and stay relevant. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to go to the AMC, but when I want that experience, I'm going to go to the Tivoli, hands down.
And a big thing, it's kind of, I compare it to like comedy, where you might watch a guy on TV, it's funny, hilarious, but when you're at a comedy club and everybody around you is laughing, or the same thing with a movie, everybody is around you, scared, excited, whatever the case may be. Movie's a big thing. What do you see? I don't know where, I know, talk about WCKG a little bit, or quite a bit, but you went from talk to sports now?
Yeah. Just in time for this interview.
No pun intended. You want to talk about it?
I'd love to talk about it.
I had somebody on my show, they said, at the end, they said, I'm sorry I talked so much. I said, that's the idea. Please.
WCKG is AM 1530. And we've been running AM 1530 since, like 2008 or so. But we really took it over and bought it in 2013, 2014. And it's been a process because we're not Amazon, we're not Cumulus, we're not iHeartRadio. In fact, Cumulus and iHeartRadio, the big companies, the two biggest in America, they own the most radio stations, they're both going bankrupt. So we're slower because we don't have their resources, but we're also solvent because we're slower. So everything that we do takes a little bit longer, but it's a mom and pop approach to this business, which a lot of people might think is crazy. But along your lines and your point about the video and the audio and the internet and all that stuff, we are working to use AM 1530 to come together in this digital world, which is why we have video cameras and we have screens in here and we have a broadcast facility that can reach video and radio. So we just became Fox Sports Chicago. We have Dan Patrick, who a lot of people know from SportsCenter in the early days of ESPN, might be the best sports talk show ever. And I'm not saying that because we have him. We got him because he's the best and he was available. Colin Cowherd, which is another former ESPN guy. We have him on from 11 to 2. And then from 4 to 7 on tape delay, we run Rich Eisen, who is another original ESPN sort of contributor and
I know you,
OG.
and I don't say it jokingly, but you are a busy guy. You cover a lot of subjects, conservative talk show, whatever case maybe. And then and you're a sports aficionado as well.
Well, I'm not as much as the next guy is, and I just have to turn that a little bit. Yeah, I got it. You can come in if you want. We just fixed the camera. I'm not like a super fan when it comes to sports. It's interesting. Like I might be more interested in the people in radio, like the people on the air, the people off the air. I might know them better than I know like the lineup of the Bears right now.
Well, I think kind of what I wanted to ask you is, are you doing a show yourself now on WCKG?
I'm not. But what I do is I come in here and I do live streams on our social media platforms. So what I did was I went and I got the best. We got this Dan Patrick, we got Colin Cowherd, we got Rich Eisen, and in the morning is a guy out of Tennessee, Clay Travis, who's also really big on the internet. This guy is such a sports fanatic. He does a morning show that he gets paid to do, and then when his day is done, he comes back and he does a show just on Twitter, on video. Now, that's how you know somebody is really passionate about what they're doing, is like they're doing a show that they're just doing the show for themselves and their fans. It's not part of the job.
He enjoys it.
He enjoys it. So I got these guys, and they're the best. I'm not the best at doing a sports show. I don't even know if I'd be the best at doing a radio show in general. That's why I got into it. But I leave that to them. And I'm focused right now on helping to get the word out about what we're doing and then working with my team. And in fact, when you walked in, we were having a sales meeting and talking to my guys. And a lot of that is we do it on social media so that everyone can sort of eavesdrop and see what we're doing.
And I know a big thing, I apologize, I don't know if it happened yet, but did you get up on the Trump Tower yet? We
have not. And we got an FM. And the FCC gave us permission to get 102.3 FM. And the rules are we have to simulcast AM 1530 and the FM completely. The bonus is that AM 1530, like the original score when it's signed on, is only a daytime station. So in the morning when the sun comes up, we turn it on.
I still don't get that.
And then at night when the sun goes down, we got to turn it off. Isn't that crazy?
Well, I mean, that's why, when I say I don't get that, because I had read about it, how after the sun goes down or the broadcast signal changes.
The reason for that is because there's an AM 1530 in Cincinnati, and it's very powerful. And they have a priority license, so we have to turn down so they can barrel through. So on 1530 AM at night, you'll hear ESPN, even though ESPN's already on here.
But then what's going on during the day? I mean, with the are you overlapping with the Cincinnati station?
No, because of the way AM works during the day, their signal doesn't come in this way. It's about atmospherics and the night and the sun. So that's why it's correlated with the sun. So because of that, because the FCC knows we're a little weak being this small AM station that's only can be on during the day, they say, we'll let you have an FM. And the FM can stay on 24 hours a day. And right now, the FM is propped on top of my AM tower, and it's not very high. So in a 5-mile radius of Elmhurst and Oak Brook, you can hear WCKG, Fox Sports Chicago, on 102.3 FM. The next step was we said to the FCC, we said, hey, can we move this thing downtown and put it on a taller building? And here's the great thing. The FCC usually takes a long time, especially with AMs. Within 2 weeks, they said, yeah, go ahead. And, you have to submit some studies and some things. And they said, go ahead. So we got permission to move it to the top of Trump Tower. We had the deal negotiated. We were ready to do it in January, ready to put it up there. And then Trump Organization put a moratorium, a halt, on all on their buildings until further notice. So we're being held up by the Donald.
You want me to make a phone call?
Would you?
Hello, Donald. Yeah, Vinny. Yeah, I'm busy. Can't talk right now. I don't know if you want to talk about it. Not that it's like a secret, but what happened with the loop? And where's that? Is that going to go the way, I don't know, like Q101, where you got the branding, you've got it. What's going to happen with the loop?
I don't know that anybody except the people at
what did happen?
Cumulus know what's going to happen with the loop because they still own that name. But what happened was, and this happens in radio. So what happened essentially was, this happens all the time. Radio stations people love go away. And shows people love go away. Heck, restaurants we love go away. There's those places you've been going to for years. You're like, oh, the soup is great. Everything is great. Everybody loves it. And then all of a sudden you come in and the place is shuttered. And you're like, what happened? How's this possible? And it's usually a combination of things, right? It isn't because you didn't like the soup, but maybe the soup over the years wasn't as good as it used to be. Maybe the owner wasn't as involved as he used to be, whatever. And that kind of thing essentially happened with the loop. The loop has been passed around from company to company for the last 20 years. It hasn't been owned by the same company. They just kind of keep passing it around and shuffling it around. And with that, it's changed a lot. So they were playing, back in my day when I was a loop aficionado and when I interned there, it was an FM talk station. And then it went back to classic rock. But even before that, it was never really classic rock. It was something different. They were playing Ray Parker Jr., and the Pretenders. That's not a classic rock station that just plays Foreigner. So now, fast forward to today, it's been passed around and passed around and passed around, and the people that were running the loop were just renting it. They were renting it. Somebody else owned it.
Renting the name and the
station, the whole thing. And they were paying hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in rent, and then the owner said, I'm going to sell it. And he sold it. And he sold it to a Christian broadcasting company for $21.5 million. And then in fact, I just saw an ad on Twitter for K-Love. And it said, K-Love's now on 97.9 in Chicago. Spread the word. And I never thought I would see that. Yeah. But people have to understand, the people that pull the strings at iHeart, at Cumulus, or any of the companies, even locally in Chicago, they may say they care because maybe some of them are from Chicago. They may act like they care, and maybe they really do care. But they don't care that much if they have to sell the loop, and they did. And if they have to sell XRT one day, they will. If XRT doesn't fit the profile of what they need to do.
Who owns XRT right now?
Cumulus? It's Entercom.
CBS, right?
CBS got bought by Entercom, so now the company's called Entercom. So XRT could be another one. People think it'll never happen. People thought it would never happen to the loop, but it did, and it happened to Q101. And I think most people in our business know that a lot of those things are coming.
Is WLS still an ABC station or no?
No, WLS is owned by Cumulus.
Crazy. You know what it stands for?
World's largest store.
How about, I won't get into that.
WGN, world's greatest newspaper.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those are legacy three-letter call letters. Like, you can't get three-letter call letters anymore. Those stations are grandfathered in.
What was the big thing about radio in the beginning was kind of for farmers? Like, they'd get the weather report and the...
Yeah, well, so let's use WLS as an example, okay? Sears and Roebuck that sold farming implements, they had to reach the farmers. Okay. Now, we talked about the papyrus and the cave drawings and all that stuff and communication. Well, in the era of WLS and farming in Illinois and Wisconsin and Iowa and Indiana, how are you going to reach the farmers? You could place ads in the newspaper. They wanted to get their catalog in their hands. But in order to get their catalog in their hands, they had to get their address or get their interest or reach them. So they ended up buying the radio station. And the radio station essentially was the communication device for Sears and Roebuck. But now the key there is, in order to get the farmers to want to listen to it, they can't just talk about the crap they're selling. They're not that interested in the stuff they're selling. So they got to put programming on that appeals to the farmers, that gets them to listen, to get them to buy.
Just like music for us.
Yes.
This leads to another big question with technology and what's going on is Sirius radio, Now you're paying for it.
Yeah.
I know you're not old to remember, but I remember going to the show, and they had petitions there, and it said, protest against paying for TV. It's like, how do you pay for TV? What does that mean? And then cable came along, and that's what that was what it was all about. But where's Sirius going then? Sirius is just going to, I don't mean where they're going, but that's another thing where you're paying for radio.
Yeah, and some people do, although most people, well, I shouldn't say this. More people than they tell us are just getting it free because it's being underwritten or subsidized by the automakers. So, in other words, when I bought my Toyota truck and when I bought my wife's Toyota van, it came with Sirius. Now, Sirius didn't give it for free. It was packaged, and so Toyota essentially had to pay the money to Sirius. So with a lot of these companies,
very interesting,
it's kind of a shell game, and some of the subscribers are paying, but really the biggest subscriber to Sirius are the auto manufacturers because they're the ones that are subsidizing it. And a lot of people don't know that. Now, that's not a shot
they do
at
now.
Yeah, they do now. That's not a shot at Sirius because there's value there.
Strictly business.
Anything it's not personal.
Michael.
There's nothing wrong, in my opinion, with satellite radio. There's nothing wrong with internet radio. What is interesting is the perception that those are challenging to terrestrial radio. The reason why iHeart is going bankrupt, and the reason why Cumulus just went bankrupt, and the reason why WGN went bankrupt, and the reason why more are going to go bankrupt has nothing to do with Sirius satellite radio. 90% of Americans still listen to the radio every week. 90% of Americans. Now, that's regular terrestrial radio. That's AM and FM. There are 300-some million people in America, maybe 350 now. About 30 million subscribe to Sirius. They say. Really? They say. So Sirius is not a threat to traditional radio. Traditional radio and the people that run it are the threat to traditional radio. They're the ones that have screwed up the books. They're the ones that have bought stations for too much money. They're the ones that have laid off the wrong people. They're the ones that are mismanaging their affairs. It's not really Sirius that did this. Radio's great. In fact, radio's never been more popular. I'm not saying that because I'm a radio guy. I'm in radio because I believe that. And if you look at radio, like you said, you watch Facebook, and you're going to see dozens and dozens of guys and girls with a microphone doing a radio show, except they're doing it on Facebook. That's radio. You're going to hear millions and millions of people starting podcasts, and you see them in iTunes. That's radio. You got Spotify that just went public, and it was a big deal. You got iTunes. You got all of these different apps, Pandora. It's all radio. It's all radio. It's spoken word. It's entertainment for your ears. It's how's it going to get to you. And right now, the radio business is about two things. It's about listeners, but it's also about advertisers. And really, it's about local advertisers. They need radio more now than ever.
I tell you, I could talk to you for 3 hours.
I could too. Yeah, we could talk some more out here.
All right. Thanks for watching. Hopefully, all the other things can work out. It looks like we're ready to be able to get 2 shows out of this. I'm a busy guy. We all got to go. See you later. Ciao.